So something your doctors probably won't tell you about your sleep apnea is how did it even happen in the first place? So right now with sleep apnea, we have an epidemic going on and not enough people are talking about it. So for those of you who don't know, sleep apnea is when you wake up multiple times when you're sleeping. But it's a little more complicated than that. It's usually because of some sort of airway obstruction. So something is happening with your breathing that's blocking air from getting into your lungs. So what happens is you wake up multiple times in the night gasping for air. And this is really a terrible disease because people who have sleep apnea end up having lower levels of oxygen, they end up getting terrible sleep, and they can even die. So one good thing that's happening is more people want to get sleep studies and more people want to get potential diagnosis of sleep apnea and see if they can treat it. But this is also part of the problem. And this is also part of the problem with modern day medicine. What we're doing is we're waiting for the disease to get bad enough to actually get diagnosed so that we can give them a solution to their problem. And this is really the case with all of medicine. How do we treat high blood pressure? We give people a pill. How do we treat type 2 diabetes? We give them insulin. How do we treat ADHD? Again, it's another pill. And it's the same thing with sleep apnea. Instead of a pill this time, we're giving them a CPAP machine. The problem with modern day medicine is nothing is done until there is a problem. And when the problem comes, all we're doing is treating the symptoms of that problem. But these problems don't just happen spontaneously overnight. They always happen gradually over time. And it's the same thing with sleep apnea. No one wakes up one day and randomly has sleep apnea. There's always a root cause that happens over time that causes this. And newer studies are now coming out, and they're showing that sleep apnea always starts with some sort of airway obstruction. So again, some sort of anatomy in your airway is not right. And this is blocking a normal amount of air to get into your lungs. And what these studies are showing is initially your body won't realize this. And you won't really realize that there's a problem because your body can kind of fix these problems on its own for a while. So to give you a glimpse of what it's like to have some of these airway problems, let's give a little example. So first, try taking a few normal breaths in and out. If you want to pause the video, you can. Now, instead of taking normal breaths, only inhale halfway, but still exhale the full normal amount. What you'll notice is after a while, and maybe even after taking a few breaths like this, that you won't feel so good. After just a few breaths, you might notice that your heart rate's going up and you might start getting more lightheaded or dizzy. Basically, your body is demanding more oxygen and it doesn't feel too good. And eventually your body will force you to take a really deep breath. So this is what it's like to have an airway problem. Every single night, you're struggling with this airway problem and not getting enough air to your lungs until your body gives out and takes a really deep breath of oxygen. But again, the good thing is your body can kind of fix this on its own. And it can actually take this deep breath of oxygen and open up your airway on its own without waking up your brain. So if this person were to get a sleep study and get tested for sleep apnea, well, this person simply wouldn't have sleep apnea because they wouldn't be waking up in the middle of the night gasping for air. And this is the problem with modern day medicine, especially with sleep apnea, because most doctors will say that there's nothing wrong and there's nothing to do. But over time, this will start to take a toll on your body. Having to constantly open up their airway to allow more air to get into your lungs is not going to last forever. What ends up happening is your body starts getting more and more inflammation and starts getting more and more chronic stress. So both of these will combine and over time they'll get worse and worse, and this is what eventually leads to sleep apnea. And this is what these new studies are showing, and I'm so glad they're coming out because they're showing that it always starts with some sort of anatomy problem or some sort of airway obstruction. And this airway obstruction will always get worse over time. And again, your doctor probably won't tell you this because in medicine, no one tells you how to prevent things. They only tell you how to treat the symptoms when problems arise. So why don't doctors focus as much on prevention? Well, I'm gonna be honest here, guys. There's just no money in preventing diseases. How is a pharmaceutical industry supposed to make money if instead of everyone getting pills for ADHD, now they're just preventing ADHD, right? It's more profitable to treat the symptoms than to prevent the disease in the first place. Now, I don't have anything against doctors or anything like that. We need doctors in this world, and most of them are actually really good. But the problem is most doctors are really overworked. and they don't get that much one-on-one time with patients. Most doctors will only get like 5 minutes per patient session. That's just not enough time to get a customized approach for each patient. And also the other problem is people just want a quick fix for things. No one wants to spend a bunch of time and effort fixing these problems, even though the problems came from multiple years of doing the wrong things over and over, when they could just take a magic pill and fix a problem so much faster. And for sleep apnea right now, the CPAP machine is this magic pill. Yes, it works wonders and it really helps a ton of people, but at the end of the day, you're just treating those symptoms and the airway obstruction is still there. So what can you do? Well, the earlier you can fix the problem, the better. And if you want to get your airway checked, a simple way to do that would be to go to an ENT or an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And also there's some simple things you can start doing at home that won't even involve going to the doctor. For example, one thing is you can start taping your mouth shut before you go to sleep. So this mouth tape might seem like a stupid fad on TikTok or something like that, but it actually really works. What it's doing is it causes you to start using your nose to breathe while you're sleeping. So first of all, your nose is so much better for you than using your mouth to breathe. And it actually delivers more oxygen to our lungs and delivers more oxygen to our brain when we use our nose versus our mouth. But also when we use our nose, our tongue is gonna stay against the roof of our mouth, and it's not gonna fall back to the back of our throat and cut off our breathing. And this is another big cause of sleep apnea, when people are breathing through their mouth and their tongue starts to fall back and cutting off their airway. Initially, this will just cause you to start snoring, where your tongue falls in the back of your mouth and it starts cutting off your breathing in the back of your throat. And as air is going in, this will cause a snoring sound. But over time, this can get worse and worse, and your tongue can completely cut off your breathing, and it can completely go in the back of your throat, and this can cause sleep apnea. Also, another simple fix you can do is to get nasal dilator strips. These are basically just pieces of tape that are designed to go over your nose, and what they do is they open up your nose a little bit and they allow more air to go through your nose into your lungs. These can really help to open up your nose for a while, and eventually you might not even need to rely on it. Now, sometimes these simple fixes aren't enough. So sometimes you need to get like a surgery. So if your tonsils are too big, or if you have a deviated septum, or something else that's blocking your airway, sometimes a surgery is the only way to fix this. And also sometimes the problem has gotten so bad that there's no other way to fix this than to get a CPAP machine or some other device to treat your sleep apnea. So if you're ever in doubt of if you have sleep apnea or not, I do think it's a good idea to get a sleep study. Just know that if the results don't come back as you having sleep apnea, that doesn't mean that you're all clear, because the problem could still be there. It just hasn't gotten bad enough yet to show up on a sleep apnea test. So you could come back 20 years later and end up having sleep apnea. So what you need to start doing is focusing on prevention so that you do not end up with this problem later on in life. So I actually made some other videos on how you can breathe better when you're sleeping and just improve your sleep overall. So I'm gonna put a couple links in the description below, so make sure you check those out. As always, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.